What's going on, guys? So, I've been testing decks, as I've been saying, as I've been getting back into the game of my somewhat hiatus. And I was testing this deck, and I was like, it needs some consistency, it needs some draw power. And you know, you search on like Wikipedia and stuff of the generic drawing cards, One Day Apiece, which everybody knows is like one of my favorite cards to put in decks. Pot of Duality, Upstart, Reckless Greed, Card D. And I was like, oh wait, I remember Maxx. It might work out, like, you know, Maxx. A lot of decks special summon now. I mean, a lot of decks are all about special summoning. I don't think there's really any decks that don't do special summoning. There's a lot of, you know, you normal summon and then there's an effect, like you can normal summon another monster this turn. There's some of those. But for the most part, you know, decks are special summoning. So I was like, hey, fuck it, let's try it. And I tried it with a different few decks, and what I've come across is quite a good find, in my opinion. So, I'm not saying nobody doesn't play the card anymore. You still see it once in a while, like, okay, but I haven't really seen it in deck profiles in a while. Once in a while you'll see it in somebody's side deck, but I don't really see anybody main it anymore, even though it wasn't that big of a card to be mained in the first place, because, you know, it doesn't have a place in every deck all the time. But what I've come across, just through dev pro testing, which isn't, like, the most clean-cut testing tool in the world, obviously, too, but what I've come across is that it's kind of a floodgate stopper. And it's a pretty damn good one. Now, before everybody gets their goat, I am not saying to play this over Vanities. Vanities, 1,000 times better as a floodgate stopper. And other multi-purpose card. Full on. I agree. So don't make those points in the comments, because I'm aware of it. Not saying this should be taken out for Vanities to any stretch. But, with that being said, if there's some reason you have room in your deck to play it with Vanities, it might help you even more. Hear me out. When I've been playing and testing with it, what usually happens is, I had a few players that, you know, where they're like, alright, I don't give a shit if you Maxx. I'm still gonna special summon, special summon, special summon, you can draw. Most of the time, like, you know, with their special summons, they'll get me that turn, but that doesn't happen all the time, so if they don't get me, that hand they just gave me is probably what's gonna make me win. Even if I'm running super low tier deck, drawing 2 to 3 cards can really help any deck. Obviously the slower ones not as much, but you know, drawing 2 to 3 cards is a big help. For one card. So a +2, pretty good. But as I tested this, if they didn't let me draw, they just didn't do their play. And it gave me open to do all my plays. Now, yes, my Maxx is playing in, playing as another card for somebody. It's, I mean, how am I putting this? It's switching out for something else I could have played in my deck. So I might not have as good as a play as I could have had if it was a different card. But if I did play that card, my opponent's field would be big, and whatever play I did have in my hand probably wouldn't be as big as or significant if they got their field first or so on. So I'm really digging this is because decks where I had Upstart, I was like, you know what, Upstart's a good card, I like being able to draw, but just for, you know, the sake of testing, me playing around, let me take out the Upstarts and put Maxx and see what happens. And my results have been pretty good. If he lets me draw, I get my draws, and if he doesn't, he just stops whatever field play was going to do. And a lot of the time, since, you know, right now Dev Pro's just flooded with Necros, there's been Necros, and they still beat me in the end, don't get me wrong, they still win, but they're letting me, it's giving me a turn to just like, hey, and they just stop what they're doing. They're just like, don't care, you can do it, that's fine. They leave me go, they're like, alright. Like I said before, I've had a few players that let me draw, but most of the time they just stop, and it's like an instant, like, because they don't want to give you that pluses, just in the fact that you get that game-winning play or game-winning hand, nobody wants you to draw 2 to 3 cards. And yes, it's usually 2 to 3 because if you do it at the right time, that's another time. You have to know the right time to Maxx, because sometimes you could fuck up and maybe only get 1 card for it, which 1's better than none, but it's not a minus there, and you just got 1 for 1. But anyways, if you do it at the right time, you usually are at least guaranteed 2 to 3 cards. If it's an XYZ summon, usually 2 to 3. But if they're doing a whole field, it can be hands of cards. Either way, it's good. And it does such a good job on just stopping the field. This video is going to be ranked because you can only talk so much about Maxx what it does. Everybody knows what it does. But I'm saying is, I think it's a card that's been forgotten to some degree. I'm not saying you should main it and everything or anything like that. I'm not saying it's going to be a meta changer. But it does a good job of making all those really fast decks not want to go fast for that specific turn. Because they don't want to give you a hand that might let you win. And their thoughts are, you know, I'll just own you next turn, which they usually do. But depending on the deck, that next turn they just gave you could be the deciding factor if you win or not. If you're running an OTK deck, they might have just gave you the OTK. Things of that nature. And I feel like people should test it again or forget about it, or, I mean, start playing with it again. Like I already said, I know there's people that are playing the card and haven't gotten rid of it. I'm not saying it's completely forgotten, but I'm saying for the majority of people, I've seen it out of decks and not as talked about as of recent. So, hey, give it a go. Let me know your thoughts down below and see what your results are for, and maybe, maybe it could be a game changer in the format. Will it? Probably not, but it's a fun little card that I've been testing out, and I've been enjoying just stopping people with play. So, hey, I'm out, guys. Catch you later. Peace!